Well, let's take a look at the debt clock real quick here as we count it down. Oh, Lord, 18 trillion, 9,387,800,000. And by the way, if you are a taxpayer, which is not everybody, that's $153,726 that you owe, and your federal government would like you to pay up at any time. So with this, I happened to, while I was reading this information this morning, came across an article from Jason Gay, Wyoming Liberty Group. Thanks for coming back on the program, Jason. It's been a while since we've had a chance to talk.
Yeah, nice to talk to you again, Glenn.
That's an interesting article that you put together because it took a look at the over $18 trillion in debt, which, by the way, when we add up all the unfunded liabilities and so on, is far higher than that. But let's just focus on the 18 trillion at once. Where did you get all the information, first off, to put your article together, and where were you going with it?
Well, most of it just comes directly from the government. They openly report what they're going to spend and what the debt is, and so I just went back and I was really kind of spurred by a article that discussed how much the spending was per household, which is it's almost $29,000 per household is what the government was spending, and I thought, well, if that's what they're spending per household, how much would it take for income earners, because not every household qualifies as an income earner. How much would it take for people who actually earn an income in this country to pay, if we all paid a flat tax, to just fund the government at its current levels, not pay off any debt, just pay what we're promising to pay from here on out. And it was really surprising to me because most people figured that a flat tax to fund the government would probably be around 10%. 15%, something like that. But, when I realized that it was 39.7%, almost 40% of your income, just to fund the federal income, or the federal budget, that just blew me away.
This is the hardest part, and I'm constantly trying to find new ways to do this, to explain to people and get them to visualize how much is owed. So what I thought was unique in your article is, okay, let's take what somebody earns during the course of a year. Pick a number, what a household might earn during the course of a year. And then let's break it down. That would be how much out of that. So you laid some numbers out for us.
Right. The average income for a household in Wyoming is $56,573. So they would pay, just in federal tax, $22,450.
Wow.
To fund the federal government. That doesn't cover state and local at all.
Now, the reason they don't see the money that's not taken out currently is because we're just dumping that on future generations.
Exactly. That's why we have $18 trillion in debt.
There you go. Okay. And there's no possible way to keep up with this with future generations. So, okay, now on top of this, because apparently, even though both parties say that they get it, they don't get it. Because after I get done talking to you, I've got a list here. It's been released now, where this money is going in the next $1.1 trillion that they intend to spend. So I don't see that anybody in Washington, D.C. yet completely gets how devastating this is going to be for our future.
It really doesn't seem that way. It's you do have some wins. They're reducing funding for the EPA and things like that, but then they turn around and we've got the funding for the Palestinian Authority, as long as they don't join the UN without an agreement with Israel, money going to Egypt, money going to Syria, and this is just this one spending bill. We continue to borrow money and then we give it to places like China where we borrow it from, and that's one of the things that really blows my mind. All the money that we've continued to give with good intentions to countries in Africa that it has produced nothing, because just as you see with people who get on the government handouts and they're living on welfare here, the same kind of thing happens with nations. Once they get used to somebody else funding programs for them, they just kind of stop trying to do things for themselves, and not to mention that most of the time anyway, it goes to a corrupt government that siphons off most of it and doesn't really get to the people it's intended to go to in the first place.
Yeah, it'd be much better if we actually imported capitalism to them and help get an economy going than rather just giving them money. By the way, I didn't get the joke when I first read the headline. Kind of embarrassed about this. It took me probably about 2 hours, and suddenly I went, oh, that's funny. With this omnibus bill here,
Right.
The Republicans voted $19 million to protect rhinos.
Right.
Yeah, that's just hysterical. And I didn't catch that at first. So, okay, when you go ahead and list all of the money, let's go back and do this again, because I think this is important for people to visualize. The average American household takes in about how much?
Well, in Wyoming, it's about $56,573. That's for the household. That's not an individual's income.
Okay, for the household.
And we're actually above the national average a little bit.
Okay, now for a household consisting of what? Are you including wife and kids and all that, or just?
Exactly.
Okay, so $56,000 to take care of everybody for the year, put food on the table, pay the rent. Wintertime comes along, keep the power going. And how much would we have to send to the federal government out of that if we were actually to pay for what we're currently doing?
$22,450.
Okay, that wouldn't leave a whole lot left. Now, thankfully, Wyoming does not have a state income tax, but of course we still have taxes in Wyoming, so some of that gets taken out as well. And God forbid somebody should live in a place like Massachusetts or California.
Right. Yeah, where they're paying an additional state income tax on top of all the other fees that folks in Wyoming are used to paying, like state property taxes. And of course, they have to deal with inflated property values, so that not only are their property taxes higher, but it's based on an artificially higher property value.
Right.
So they pay more. And that, I mean, it would be a real mess if you were making that much in California. I'd be surprised if you would have over $25,000 left if you tried to actually fund the government.
Let's add on top of that. So now we're supposed to pay for inflated healthcare costs because of Obamacare, so those prices just went up. Right. And the price of fuel is going up because, well, your federal government has decided to make fuel less expensive, therefore fuel is getting more expensive.
As it always does.
Yeah, okay. So at this point, it looks to me like the average household, even in a state like Wyoming, is in debt.
Oh, definitely. If you were to look at just what the debt is right now, it's roughly $57,000 per person. So if you had a family of four, you're looking at $228,000. And one of the things I ask people is, think about how long it would take you to save up, your family to save up $228,000 in cash, and then you would just hand that over to the government to pay off your debt.
Yeah. Of course, what would happen if we all did have that money and we all handed it to the government all at once, then immediately find a way to spend it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, they would pay down the bill. I mean, that's like someone who's addicted to their credit cards, and you give them the money to pay off their credit cards, and what they do is go out and on the spending spree.
Right. Or they get the zero interest special rate, they transfer to the balance, and then now they have nothing on the first card, so they go out and they run that one up too.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
And that's really what our government is. It's like a person who's addicted to credit cards and just keeps spending.
Right, and actually thinks that they can borrow and spend their way out of debt. As we heard our vice president say, do we have to borrow money to get out of debt? Oh, yes, we do.
Right.
Yeah, there's an addict talking for you.
And you're running into a problem. That's one of the other things I pointed out is that we're getting to a point to where, in order to really sustain the debt, we're going to need massive cuts in spending. And instead of starting cuts now, we keep adding programs.
Right.
And if you keep adding more liabilities now, it's just going to make it that much harder when we finally reach a point like Greece, where the world is saying, no, you have to start paying your debts.
What kills me about this, and it really bothers me, is in order to balance this, we're not going to have to make massive cuts to a bunch of programs that aren't working anyway. We actually have programs that do legitimately help some people, and those are the programs that we're going to have to cut the hell out of because we've overpromised and we're paying people who shouldn't be in these programs in the first place. That's why I think America can't sit down and have a conversation about this. Because the moment you say we're going to cut Social Security, oh, dear Lord, I mean, it's screaming.
At some point, there's going to have to be a realization that there are no sacred cows in the budget.
Right.
So if you look at Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education, and welfare, which those really I would argue aren't really, none of those are functions that legitimately belong to the federal government. But those programs alone are 64.9%, almost 65% of the budget. Wow. So there's you couldn't even cut enough out of everything else to get out of this debt problem. So those things, which are, like you said, are, regardless of what people think otherwise, tend to be sacred cows: Social Security, Medicare, education, welfare. I mean, there's going to have to be cuts made at some point, and the sooner you do it, the less painful it'll be.
Well, and you and I sit here and say the sooner we do it, and you and I agree, but what I see is our federal government instead is growing every one of these programs rather than cutting them back. So they don't seem to understand. There is no sense of reality here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree that up to today, there seems to be no realization in Washington of the actual magnitude of the problem.
Okay, well, here, let me leave you with this joke here then, because we just depressed everybody. Don't worry, Jason. The Republicans are in charge now, and they're going to fix everything. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Yeah, okay. Jason, very good article. Where can they find it and read it for themselves?
It's up on our website at whyliberty.org.
Okay. Jason, thank you for coming on.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, it is depressing. No, I've read the article and, oh my God, this is depressing. But what I'd like to just go to whyliberty.org, Jason Gay, that's his name. The article's right there talking about the national debt. What I liked about it is he actually put it in a way that you and I can relate to, which is extraordinarily difficult when we talk about the size of the over 18 trillion. 9 million is where we're at. We're probably at 10 million now if I were to take a look at it, because Jason and I talked for about 10 minutes there. So we're probably up to 10 million now. And so how do you pitch? Really, it's difficult. That's one of the most difficult things that I find to do. And here's how I consider my job. What I consider my job. I take a look at difficult information to understand, and I understand it. I spend a lot of time because you guys have real jobs, and then I try to put it in a way that you can visualize and pass on to your friends. It's hard to do. So that's why I would recommend this. You can go to Whyliberty or whylib.org and just type it in. You'll see his article right there. And it really does put it in a way that I think you can understand and pass on to your friend. John Means is on the phone. Whoops, wrong one, number 3. Hi, John, how you doing?
Hey, part of the problem is, not that it matters if there's a Democrat or Republican, because they pretty much melded into the same thing. But it's that word like billions and trillions means nothing to them.
Yeah.
They have there's nothing in their brain that says, hey, a billion's a lot. I mean, a lot.
Yeah, you can't visualize it. Well, that's why I like this article, because, okay, if you make $56,000 a year and you have a mortgage and you have kids and so on, and the federal government wants $23,000 of that, and that's just for the federal government. Can you picture that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And they want that every single year, by the way.
Yeah, I get that with even worse than that, child support every year.
Oh, dear Lord, let's not get into that. So,
well, it's just one of the things, I know it's there. I have to budget for it.
No, you do. You have to budget for it. Here's where we go with that. You have to budget for it by law.
Yeah. They're required by law to budget this, but their budget doesn't mean nothing, because if they go over, they just, hey, let's vote. The votes go over.
Well, John, it's not their money, so what do they care?
Darn.
And there's the problem. All right, thanks for calling in.